Is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Mrs. Frost.
Good morning, President Jones and members of the board. I'd like to start my report this morning by also thanking Bill Slayton. In the 7 years he's been with us, I think we've all had the privilege of working with someone who has a lot of insight and has really helped to foster much thoughtful discussion within this entity. His understanding of some of the local government issues, I think, also provided valuable input and data and information as we were contemplating changes that would have fairly dramatic impact to our public employers. And in my time here, I've found that Bill's pragmatic approach to resolving issues and looking at tough data and tough challenges has been really quite helpful and constructive. So we'd like to thank Bill on behalf of the team here at Calpers for his service to the board and to Calpers generally, and his dedication to protecting our members' pension and health benefits. I'd also, although Lisa's not with us this morning, also like to thank Lisa, or welcome Lisa Middleton to the board, and the team at Calpers is really looking forward to getting to know her and working with her directly. So moving on to other business, yesterday the Pension and Health Benefits Committee was presented with the preliminary health premiums for 2020. It's important to emphasize that these are preliminary health premium rates and represent months of negotiations that have been happening between the health plans and the health team. So we have another month of work ahead of us in negotiations, and I think there was good direction from this board, and we'll come back to you in June with the final rates. That will be followed by open enrollment in the fall, and with new health premiums and any plan changes taking place or taking effect January 1 of 2020. As part of the work we do in health, I think we did hear some public comment yesterday about an informational workshop session that we held last week with our stakeholders about mental health benefits. The workshop was really developed in response to a request asking for more information from the health plans about mental health services. Representatives from Kaiser, Anthem Blue Cross, United Healthcare, and Blue Shield all attended and explained the benefits that are available to our members. And I think everyone did agree that it was a valuable use of their time. We will continue to look for additional avenues and content and topics to be able to present in that format. So if the stakeholders of the board has input on other topics, we would enjoy hearing those. On Monday, the Investment Committee held a workshop on risk and return, and that was done by the CFA Institute in addition to members of our own team. This was second in a series of workshops that we will be providing over the next few months. And I think they really do give a good opportunity to share investment knowledge with the board and with the team and help you prepare for the work ahead, and in particular, the work ahead over the next 12 to 18 months. Next month, we will have the focus on the role of the various asset classes, and later in the summer, and so we'll start with private asset classes, and then later in the summer, we'll do the public asset classes, and then also asset allocation. So on another note, I am pleased to report that Calpers has been awarded recognition for the 2019 Richard Goodman Strategic Planning Award by the Association of Strategic Planning. This award does recognize distinction in the practice of developing strategy and then tracking those strategies through implementation. It's an acknowledgement of the work that was done on the 2017 to 2022 strategic plan. And I'd like to thank the Enterprise Strategy and Performance Division in partnership with all of the Calpers programs and branches in receiving that award. To date, we're managing 94 strategic and operational metrics and 34 strategic initiatives that will guide the work through 2022. Now, those initiatives obviously are not all major strategies bringing new work into the organization. It is a combination of our strategic plan as well as the operational measures that were presented to you about 18 months ago. Switching gears now to outreach and engagement, the California City Superintendent's Conference. I was able to attend that just after last month's board meeting, and I participated on a panel with Jack Ennis from CalSTRS and Derek Lennox from Capital Advisors Group. As you know, school budgets are under stress. I think you probably hear that when you're out talking with stakeholders. And trying to balance meeting the needs of their students as well as the needs of the district employees, as well as paying for the benefits that have been earned, has been quite challenging. And I think Derek Lennox did a good job of emphasizing the role that school leaders can play in advocating for budget improvements at the state level, which of course Calpers does not get involved in. But for our part, we did share the strategies that we've taken around making sure that they are informed about budgets, their budget responsibilities over the next 1 to 5 years. And then the following week, I did speak to a group of library directors who attended their annual event here in Sacramento. They asked me to share my view and thoughts on leadership and leading organizations and getting organizations to become more focused on their members and their employees. So that was a fun opportunity to talk to the librarians. And also, I think, another opportunity to connect with a group of our members. And then finally, I was on a panel at the Milken Institute Global Conference. I know Mr. Jones was in attendance for that session. And it was really around the importance of defined benefit plans. And the title of the session was, Can America Afford to Retire? If any of you would like a link to that session, I'd be happy to get that out to all of you. But it was intended to be a very balanced discussion. We had Andrew Biggs there, for those of you who have maybe heard of Andrew Biggs and some of the work that he's done through the American Enterprise Institute. We had the board chair of Texas Teachers, and then we had the CEO of a principal financial group, Dan Houston. So I will forward that out to the board. Now on to some Calpers internal activities, starting with the participation of Calpers team members in the March of Dimes Walk for Babies and the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure. These are activities, of course, that our team here at Calpers really enjoys participating in. And although we had to modify some of these events a few years ago, we are sticking with our commitment to these very important topics. And then this weekend, Calpers will participate in the annual A Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event. And it's getting warm in here. And the goal there is to really help end violence against women. And then upcoming activities, there are a number of those that I'd like to take just a moment to mention, starting with our annual Calpers Apex Award Ceremony next week on Thursday, May 23rd. Apex stands for Achieving Performance Excellence, and it's our highest form of recognition here at Calpers. This year, we have the privilege of honoring 15 recipients, and the award honors our employees who go above and beyond their normal day-to-day responsibilities, who live the core values of Calpers and display a commitment to the overall success of the organization. And one of the special aspects of the Apex is that it's not a management award, it is a peer-to-peer award, and I think that makes it even more special. Nominators also put in a significant amount of work to get the form together or the nomination package, which once submitted are then evaluated by the Review and Selection Committee. With that level of criteria and peer review, you can see why the Apex does mean so much to the employees here at Calpers. And so we do have this year's class of Apex recipients with us this morning, and I'd like to take a moment to have them stand and we can celebrate their accomplishments. So congratulations to them. And there's more. And then the first week of June, we'll launch registration for our 20th Annual Education Forum for employers. The Educational Forum is a great opportunity for our employers to come in and interact with the team, get new information around legislation, about operational issues that they're facing, and they get to interact directly with the subject matter experts at Calpers. And they also get the opportunity to network with their fellow colleagues around the state, and I think this is a unique opportunity for them to do so. This year's forum will be held October 28th through the 30th, if you want to mark that down, at the Oakland Marriott City Center. And we'll have over 40 educational sessions to offer, as well as a full exhibit hall and one-on-one consultation opportunities. And one of the most popular tables that gets filled up pretty quickly is the work with our actuarial team. So I hope that many of you will be able to join on those dates. I know the employers enjoy interacting with the board as well. And then on employer visits, I will be visiting with city officials in Concord, Vallejo, and Vacaville on June 7th. And then the Diversity Forum will co-host again this year, or it happens every 2 years, with CalSTRS, and another date to write down, which is June 10th and 11th. That event will be held here in Sacramento at the Sheraton Grand. And the 2-day event starts on the 10th with a workshop for investment professionals looking to create a diversity and inclusion implementation plan. And then the following day is a full-day program with guest speakers and panelists from some of the nation's leading researchers, policymakers, and influencers on the topic of diversity and inclusion. And we're expecting about 200 attendees. And one of the sessions we have will be moderated by Mary Pugh, will be the 2 CIOs of CalSTRS and Calpers. So Ben Meng and Chris Ellman will have a session, which I think you all might find really interesting. And so I will conclude with investment performance year to date, and this would be for the Public Employees Retirement Fund as of March 31st of 2019. The total fiscal year to date performance is 2.8. The rolling 1-year return of the fund is 3.4. The 3-year return is 8.2. The 5-year return is 6.0, and the 10-year return is 9.5. And then finally, I'd just like to close by highlighting Public Service Recognition Week, which took place last week. But we really do try to celebrate public service throughout the year, but take an opportunity every year to reemphasize. It's a national celebration for civil servants with a goal of helping citizens connect to their government. To honor the observance, we did take time during the week to thank our team members here at Calpers and in our West Sacramento and regional offices. And Donna Lum did update that our contact center that was over in West Sac has fully moved over to headquarters now. They've come back home, as they like to say. But we did do a short video of a conversation that I was able to have with some of them, which really illustrates, I think, the passion and the engagement that our employees have in serving the membership. So these are the people who are talking on the phone with our members every day. So at this point, I'd like to roll the video that we did and let you see that as well.
Good morning and welcome to Public Service Recognition Week. We're here at CSOD, as you know, to talk with the team about public service and what that means to you, and really to get your perspective on how Calpers as an organization is functioning. Do you consider yourself a public servant?
I find it really fulfilling when you speak to a member and they tell you that they love the treatment that they get, the customer service, that we take the time with them, we don't rush them, and that's what's important to me, is developing that rapport with members. Treat them like it's your mom, it's your dad, or someone calling in, so they don't feel like I'm just a number. To me, that's being a good public servant.
One of the taglines that when I came to work here at Calpers was making a difference. And that is absolutely something that we do every single day with every single call. And you do so in a way that allows them to hold on to their dignity. That's fulfillment. That's what feeds your heart.
I speak a lot about the importance of retirement security and the role that we have in defined benefit plans and the word dignity. And you know, it's very difficult to have a dignified life if you do not have financial options. And that's something that Calpers and the team at Calpers readily provides, and we do it really well. Do you feel like you hold Calpers' reputation in your hands every single day?
I really do. We are the first line of contact for our members and our customers. And it's an opportunity to prove what we do really is a public service.
What were you thinking about when you decided you wanted to apply at Calpers? So what brought you here?
The satisfaction that you leave at the end of the day knowing that you made a difference in somebody's life by clearing up a misconception that they may have had.
Well, thank you for your time, and I really enjoyed our conversation, and let's have fun during Public Service Recognition Week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great illustration of just the customer service and the attitudes that we have throughout the organization here at Calpers. So that does conclude my remarks, Mr. President, and I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Frost. I see no request for questions. Next item on the agenda is action consent items 6A and B. And I would remind the board that there is a revised 6B in your folder. So Mrs. Taylor moved it. Second by Ms. Pickle Rogers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the item passes. I have received no request to move anything off the consent agenda items, so we will move to committee reports and actions. The first one is Investment Committee. For that, I call on the chair, Mr. Rob Fechner, and I congratulate Mr. Fechner as being nominated and selected as the chair of the Investment Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. There we go. Thank you, Mr. President. The Investment Committee met on May 13, 2019. The committee held an election of the Investment Committee chair and vice chair positions. Rob Fechner was elected as chair of the committee, and Teresa Taylor was elected as vice chair of the committee. The committee received reports on the following topics: an overview of Calpers' history and performance in co-investing, a workshop covering the basics of investment risk from a trustee's perspective. The committee heard public comment on the following topics: labor relations and business practices, Calpers' co-investment strategy, the risks of private detention centers. At this time, I would like to share some highlights of what to expect at the June Investment Committee meeting. The second of 4 investment education workshops, proposed updates to the investment policy for the California Employers Pension Pre-Funding Trust, further discussion regarding private equity co-investments. The next meeting of the Investment Committee is scheduled for June 17, 2019 in Sacramento, California. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fechner. The next item is the Pension and Health Benefits Committee. For that, I call on the chair, Mr. Fechner.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Pension Health Benefits Committee, PHBC, met on May 14, 2019. The committee recommends, and I move, the board approve the following. Agenda item 6A, approve staff's recommendation to use $44 million of the available monies above what is required for an actuarial reserve to mitigate the 2020 PERS Care Preferred Provider Organization Basic Plan Premium Rate Increase.
Before I ask for a motion and a vote on this, we do have a request to speak from the public. Mr. Tim Burns, if you could come up to the mic, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, President Jones, members of the board, Tim Behrens, President of the California State Retirees. I just wanted to give you kind of a heads up for next legislative session. We plan to pursue bringing back the Rural Health Subsidy Program. I agree with Board Member Fechner and others yesterday that said, sharpen your pencils, CalPERS. We need to try to keep the cost of health care down. I'm not optimistic about that. I feel like we pat ourselves on the back when we have a 9.2% increase because we didn't get a 20% increase. Nevertheless, the increase keeps coming. And we have people that have retired 20 years ago that are making a minimal amount as their retirement, that are on a fixed income, and every time this goes up, it takes part of their fixed income away from them, those people living in rural areas. And one thing about us retirees, when we retire, we like to move to the ocean or up in the mountains where it's nice and cool. And unfortunately, along with that comes very few choices of what kind of health care benefits we can buy. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and we'll be talking with you more about that in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So on the motion of the committee, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the item passes.
The committee received reports on the following topics. The committee received information on healthcare cost trends and preliminary 2020 health plan rates. At this time, I'd like to share some highlights of what to expect at the June PHBC meeting. The committee will receive information on PERS Select value-based insurance design, state annuitant contribution formulas, reference pricing solicitation, and approve the 2020 health plan benefit rates. The next meeting of the PHBC is scheduled for June 18, 2019 in Sacramento, California. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Fechner. The next item is a report on the Finance and Administration Committee. For that, I call on the chair, Mrs. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Administration Committee met on May 14th, 2019. The committee recommends, and I move, the board approve the following. Agenda item 4B, approve the Treasury Management Policy.
On the motion of the committee, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item passes.
Agenda item 4C, approve the Treasury Management Reserve Policy.
On the motion of the committee, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The item passes.
Agenda item 6A, approve personal services expenditure of $415.6 million as currently calculated.
On the motion of committee, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes.
And agenda item 6B, approve the second reading of the 2019-20 annual budget in the amount of $1.898 billion and 2,875 positions.
On the motion of the committee, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes.
Great. At this time, I'd like to share some highlights of what to expect at the September Finance Administration Committee meeting. The annual actuarial valuation terminated agency pool. And the next meeting of the Finance Administration Committee is scheduled for September 17th, 2019 in Sacramento, California.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. There were no meetings for the Performance Comp and Talent Management Committee, the Risk and Audit, and Board Governance Committee, so therefore no report. We move to action item 9, 9A, Mrs. Taylor.
Yes, thank you. Am I still in?
Okay.
Thank you. So I move to, number one, adopt the proposed decisions at agenda item 9A2, agenda items 9A4 through 8, and agenda item 9A10 with the minor modifications argued by staff to agenda items 9A4, 6, and 8.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes.
I move to remand agenda item 9A1 for the taking of additional evidence as argued by the member.
Second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes.
I move also to remand agenda item 9A3 for the taking of additional evidence regarding the appropriate pay rate to apply to in calculating the member's final compensation.
Is that second? Second, Mr. Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes.
I move to defer agenda 9A9, agenda item 9A9, till June.
Second? Oh,
We give it to
Rob, Mr. Fechner. Okay, second by Mr. Fechner. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the item passes.
Oops.
Hey, I get
You got it? Okay. Finally, I move to deny the petition for reconsideration at agenda item 9B1.
Second? Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes. Is that it?
I think I've got one more. Hold on. I move to direct the Calpers legal office to solicit written comments from the public on whether or not to designate the decision at agenda item 9C1 as a precedential board decision.
This is second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The item passes.
And that is it.
That's it. Okay, and Mr. Sherrod was on the phone, so thank you, Mr. Sherrod.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it.
Okay. So now we move to agenda item 10. 10A, Enterprise Performance Reporting. Ms. Hutchins.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. Sabrina Hutchins, Calpers team member. Before we jump in, I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to acknowledge the efforts of the individuals next to me, the larger executive team, and all of Calpers for being awarded an honorable recognition for the 2019 Richard Goodman Strategic Planning Award that Marcy mentioned this morning. I will have the honor of accepting this recognition on behalf of Calpers at this week's Association of Strategic Planning annual conference. And as part of our honorable recognition designation, we will be featured on the association's website. So with that, I will turn this over to Michael, who is our primary senior leader over our EPM program, and he's going to provide you our third quarter performance report update.
Thank you, Sabrina. Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. My name is Michael Younger, Calpers team member. Today I'm joined by members of the executive team to present to you the third quarter review of the Enterprise Performance Report. This report represents the second year in the reporting cycle of the Calpers 2017-22 strategic plan. Our focus today will be on those strategic indicators this quarter that are either at risk or off target. However, we have provided full details within your agenda item attachment for both the strategic and operational reports. Within your agenda item materials, you'll find the strategic plan alignment map, which is included as attachment A. This shows the connection between the strategic goals, objectives, measures, and initiatives, and is what we refer to as the strategic side of the business. This map uses the stoplight methodology, representing an overlay of status indicators of red, yellow, and green. Additional details for each of these indicators can be found in attachments C and D of the agenda item materials. So this quarter, you'll notice that we've added trend analysis to the strategic measure summary sheets to provide you a better view of current and past performance. Next quarter, you can expect the same level of trend analysis on the operational KPI summary sheets as well. A little background before we jump in. The framework that the system aligns with really refers back to our foundation, which captures our mission, vision, and core values, and in the simplest terms, represents who we are and what we aspire to achieve. This includes our strategic objectives, our strategic goals, as well as our outcome measures, which outline our high-level operational expectations. Depicted on this slide is a high-level visual of the Enterprise Performance Management System, which involves the development, implementation, monitoring, reporting, and ad hoc refinement of performance metrics which support CalPERS' mission and vision. The primary intent of this system is to reinforce CalPERS' desire to be transparent and accountable in support of strategic goals, objectives, and operational expectations. Given that this is an iterative process, we've denoted within your board materials when data is pending refresh, under development, or currently not available. So regarding our state of the business, our review and analysis of the third quarter information identified 4 measures that are currently refreshing with new data, and those relate to the total healthcare cost annual change, risk employee awareness survey, risk program maturity survey, as well as the compliance employee awareness survey. I'm happy to report that all of these measures are in the green, on target. And of the 34 business plan initiatives, the majority are in the green, 3 are showing as complete, and 2 are reflecting off target. And we'll hear a little bit more about that in just a moment. 3 of the 3 business plan initiatives that have been completed, those are related to the actuarial evaluation system redesign under the fund sustainability goal, phase 2 of the enterprise business continuity plan under the risk management goal, as well as our partnerships with health plans to engage in community activities under the healthcare affordability goal. So as members of the executive team speak to the initiatives that are currently off target, they will provide information regarding root cause for the status, as well as constraints and mitigation strategies currently underway. Keep in mind that this information reflects statuses as of March 31st, 2019, and represents topics that are relevant and at the front end of our strategic priorities. With that said, I will hand it over to Brad to take us through his updates under the fund sustainability goal. Brad?
Thank you, Michael, and good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. Brad Pacheco, CalPERS team. I thought it would be worthwhile for some of the new board members to just spend a minute about what we're trying to accomplish around this initiative for educating stakeholders about the risks in the system and the steps we're taking to mitigate those risks. This has been on the strategic plan for a few years now, and the focus is on helping stakeholders understand the why of the decisions that CalPERS is making, and also the impact to those decisions. So we're looking at things like lowering the discount rate and changing the amortization schedule. This fiscal year, our focus was around local elected officials. It's a group where CalPERS has been less interactive, and one where we saw a need for better understanding around the system. You might recall that we worked with our associations that represent cities, counties, and special districts last year to develop the first ever local elected official education track at our educational forum down in Indian Wells. And we're also using opportunities when our senior leaders are out in the field in California speaking at conferences to set up meetings with local elected officials and our employer partners. You heard Ms. Frost say this morning that she's going to be down visiting the cities of Vallejo, Concord, and Vacaville. One of the deliverables in this initiative was to develop a guide for local elected officials. And we had hoped to complete this in January, but we shifted our priorities for a reason, and as a result, this initiative is listed off target. The shift in the priorities actually came from direct experience and learning with our interactions with local elected officials. Oftentimes, they need a fundamental understanding of the system because they're new to their roles. There's a lot of turnover on city councils and commissions and county boards. Additionally, many of the decisions that were made around benefit levels in cities and counties and special districts were made prior to them even being in their role. And they have to have an understanding of the background and why those decisions were made. So for those that have served on the board, have been around Calpers for some time, and Michael has this, we often use this rather large poster to try to educate folks about the benefit structure, and it's quite unlike navigating a world map, and it's clearly shows the complexity within the system. Yeah. So what we did is we have made it more user-friendly. We've tried to boil it down into an understandable publication. It's a review of our retirement and health benefits. We use this opportunity to put information in here about your role in the system and just general basic Calpers facts. And we're going to use this as the foundation to develop the toolkit for the local elected officials, and then roll that out by the end of the fiscal year, and then debut it at our educational conference in October. So that's our plan moving forward, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, see no questions at this time.
Hi, Doug Hoffner, Calpers team member. To Brad's point, the initiative here we're talking about relates to talent management, and really it's the internal focus of this organization to have the most highly qualified individuals working at Calpers to provide those services for our members. This initiative was off target last quarter as well. This is really about creating a tool that we can use through our human resource management system to look at our competencies. Those leadership competencies were revised and developed over a year and a half ago. They've been rolled out to the organization by level of, at every level of the organization. And what we're trying to do here is align that with our new technology project that is not under contract yet. And so we didn't think it was prudent to move forward until that was done. The one piece of information you don't have, because we reported this 10 days ago, was we were in informal discussions or formal discussions yesterday with a provider, and so we're fruitful and hopeful that in the next few days that we will get to sort of resolution to begin that formal process. And so until that is done, this will continue to be off track. What we have done is incorporated all those leadership competencies in duty statements, performance plans, the duty, other information related to the positions as they become vacant, to really help incorporate that culture of the leadership competencies we're looking for here at Calpers at every level of this organization. And so with that internal focus, we've been engaging in that for the last year and a half to roll that out. And then this will provide an automated tool to help with that going forward. But until that project is under contract, this will continue to lag. Happy to take any questions.
Okay. See no questions. Okay.
So just in closing, we would like to share just a few reminders. We look forward to attending the July offsite to facilitate a strategic plan discussion with the full board. Also, the next EPR report will be presented in August 2019. This concludes our report, and we're happy to take any questions.
Okay, seeing no questions, thank you for the report. The next item on the agenda is state and federal legislation update. Mr. Brown.
There we go. Good morning, Mr. President and board members. Danny Brown, Calpers team member.
I will start by just highlighting a few of the bills that are in your packet. First, both of our sponsored bills have made it out of their first house without any no votes. We do expect them to be heard in the second policy committee probably sometime in mid-June or late June once they finish the budget. One other bill that I kind of wanted to highlight was AB 33, which was Assemblymember Bonta's bill, as you recall, that deals with divestment from private prisons. He did not have the necessary votes to get that out of committee last month, so he's actually made it a 2-year bill. So we'll see if he does bring it back next year. We're basically at another big legislative deadline, which is the suspense hearing, which takes place tomorrow. So this week is the week to get all the bills out of the fiscal committees. There are hundreds of bills on the suspense file, including a number of the ones that we are tracking. So we will be watching that closely. Many of those bills will get amended in order to bring the cost down. So based on the outcome of that hearing, there could be 3 or 4 bills that we do bring to you next month for your consideration. On the budget front, which many of you kind of heard yesterday in the Finance Committee, the governor's May revise came out. No changes to the $3 billion a proposal to give Calpers some additional money. We're basically at the whim of the legislature now as they move through the process. We are watching it closely and providing them information as they request it on the impact of that $3 billion. On the federal side, there hasn't been much change since last month. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in D.C., but nothing really pertaining to the issues that we are tracking. But in light of the conversation yesterday around the health rates, I do want to ensure the board that we are closely watching the health insurance tax and Cadillac's tax issues. While we're hopeful that both of these taxes will be delayed, obviously they will not be delayed before you have to approve health rates next month. If it does happen, it's likely to be in some kind of end-of-the-year package that has to move through Congress. But we will continue to look for opportunities to advocate on those 2 bills, both through organizations that we belong to as well as individually. And then just staying on the topic of healthcare, there's been a number of hearings around healthcare issues, particularly drug pricing. Many of those bill packages are starting to materialize, and so we are looking at them closely and anticipate we'll be weighing in on a few of those bills in the next couple of months, but we'll definitely keep you apprised when that happens. And I'll end there and answer any questions you may have about any of the bills we're tracking.
Seeing no questions, thank you for the report. We now move to item 10C, summary of board direction.
None noted.
Good. Okay. Now we move to public comment. I have a request to speak from 2 members of the public, Mr. Jelinek and Mr. Neil Johnson. If you can come forward, and you will have 3 minutes to make your comments.
So we've debated, we decided I'm going first. I'm J.J. Jelinek, and I want to remind you that you are trustees and fiduciaries. The trust funds exist to pay benefits and to pay legitimate expenses. You don't run the system, you work through staff and vendors. They have only the authority that you give them, and you define the 4 squares of the 4 corners of that authority. They are acting as your agents. You can delegate authority, but you can't delegate away your responsibility. We had an employee who was on leave, enter the complex after hours and steal confidential information. Calpers did not call the cops. In fact, Calpers discouraged a police investigation. They did take an adverse action against the employee, but only after she had retired. Now the ex-employee is being sued, and trust funds are being used to fund her defense. That would suggest that she was operating within the scope of her employment. The adverse action would suggest otherwise. But that's not bad enough. Calpers is now arguing in court using trust funds that while she didn't have the right to steal the information, once she did, she had the right to make it public. This should bother every single member of the system, that their trust funds are being used to defend making confidential information public. It is upsetting that trust funds are being used to defend the right to disseminate stolen information. I think that you and your agents really need to look at what you are doing. Thank you.
Johnson.
Neil Johnson, SEAU 1000. Two things. One, I want to personally thank Mr. Slayton for his service to this board for a number of years. Unfortunately, I got here a little late this morning to be able to tell him personally, but I do want to make it public. He has been a dedicated servant. I haven't always necessarily agreed with his positions, but I think he really took the mission of the agency into heart, and I thank Bill for his service. My second comment goes back to about 50 years ago when I was in graduate school in Southern California. I was a teaching assistant and a lecturer doing principles of economics, and one of the basic assumptions was that transaction costs, which are the costs of information, contracting, and policing, are zero. And that all people participating in the market have equal information. Monday we had you had a workshop, which I think Mr. Bailey did a very good job of trying to convey that your job is not the day-to-day operations, but is to set the policy guidance and to oversee the system at some level where you have sufficient detail to know what is going on as both a fiduciary and a trustee. And I've had conversations with board members Brown and Taylor in the last week about the agenda is becoming fairly short. And one of the concerns I have, I think and maybe other stakeholders have, and hopefully you as board members have, is are we getting enough information? You know, for years, I would wind up by the end of Wednesday with a stack of paper because we essentially lost the forest for the trees. No pun intended, but we had so much information, it was sometimes hard to discern what was important and what wasn't important. I think we have now, what I'm seeing is maybe have swung this pendulum the other direction where there's not enough information being disseminated for you to be able to make informed decisions and set the policy. I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, that concludes the agenda items, and so this meeting is adjourned, and we will convene closed session in 10:15. No, 10:20.
Just to make sure.
Yeah.